Hi, welcome to our documentary on Judaism.
Today, we'll be interviewing Rabbi Harari at Shur Tikva in Homewood.
What is like your attendance here? Like how many members do you have?
So this is an area that has, I guess, a lower Jewish population than some.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the Jews are concentrated in the North Shore of Chicago, where the populations are much larger. We're probably about 100 households.
Okay, and would you say, like how far would you say most of them are traveling to get here?
Between 5 and 30 minutes.
Okay, so not bad.
No.
Okay,
Not
that's
too
cool.
bad at all.
Would you say that like most of your members fall into like a class, or would you say it's kind of spread out?
So it's a great question. It's somewhat spread out.
Okay.
I think what I will say is that generally speaking, Judaism is very much a lifelong learner. As a culture, we very much emphasize education. So I think it's safe to say that many people, but not all people, are people who will have earned, certainly bachelor's degrees, and many have master's degrees and PhDs.
Yeah, like what sect? Like
What sect?
So we're affiliated, this congregation is affiliated with two different movements. One is the Reform movement, which is kind of on a very general level and a very loose level, kind of the left liberal end of the spectrum.
Okay.
And we're also affiliated with the Conservative movement, which is kind of the middle of the spectrum.
Okay.
So they are very similar in many ways, but have a few distinctions among them.
Okay, and what are some other like different sects that there are?
So there is Orthodoxy. Orthodox Judaism is kind of the most traditional, the word Orthodox means rigid. And so it's the most rigid interpretation of Jewish law. Those are the people you would see, like if you've ever seen Hasidic Jews that have like the black hats, the side curls. Women will cover their hair, wear long skirts, high collars, things like that. That is Orthodox Judaism. There are smaller divisions even within Orthodoxy, like Hasidic is one, where that's one way to understand it. There are people who are what we would call modern Orthodox, where maybe the women don't cover their hair, but they're still wearing skirts. So there are a lot of different levels. Yeah. There's also what's called Reconstructionist Judaism, which is kind of I would call it kind of a left-leaning, more liberal movement, which was a branch off from the conservative movement. Okay. Traditional Orthodox Jews, who are most rigid in their observance, people come to the synagogue, I would say, sometimes 3 times a day. There are 3 worship services a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. Primarily morning and evening, they will have what's called the minyan. That's the Hebrew word for a quorum, the minimum number of Jews that's required to say certain prayers aloud in community. It's symbolic community. So in an Orthodox synagogue, that is still very much traditional. Women don't count toward that because traditionally women could not be counted upon to be a part of a minyan. Their primary job was to take care of children and to run the household. So women did not count toward a minyan. In the more liberal traditions, like the conservative tradition, the Reform, the Reconstructionist, women are equal to men, and so we count women and men in that. And that minimum number is 10. So they have 10 men. Men always will come in and do the services there. In our community, we used to have a daily worship service, primarily in the mornings. We no longer have that number of people who are able to do that.
Are there any, so in sociology we call these material culture traits, but those are basically just like physical aspects of like a religion or a culture. So is there like a book or anything like that?
Absolutely. So there are a number of those, I would say.
Yeah.
First and foremost for us, when we say a book, you may have heard that Judaism is referred to as the people of the book. We are very much based on the Torah. This means tree of life, Torah and commentary. So you've got, like here, I just opened up, it's Exodus chapter 2, verse 16 is the top of the page. You got the Hebrew, here's the translation, and down here you've got comments, like different comments. The first 5 books of the Bible, which are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. We have them here in our sanctuary. I'll show you in just a second, in the form of scrolls. So back here we have an ark, and the ark, if I can sneak in here for a second, is supposed to mimic, and you're welcome to come up here. The ark is kind of supposed to symbolize the Ark of the Covenant, which carried the 2 tablets of the covenant, which were brought down from Mount Sinai to Moses. And today, it holds our Torah scrolls. We have some Torah scrolls and some baking soda, which just keeps the moisture out, because this is an older ark. So Torah scrolls come in different sizes, as you can see.
Yeah, they're big. I was not expecting this to be so big.
This is pretty, right, like these are actually very light.
Really?
Shockingly light for what they are. There's also a baby. This one I can hold with one hand. I won't do it because if I drop it, I have to fast for 40 days and only eat at night. So we're not going to do that. But we take this very seriously.
Wow,
this
yeah.
But see if we can see it better from here for a second. I'll pull this out and show you. But it's basically, this is animal hide. It's got a little bit of a whitewash on the back to keep it stronger. But it's got 2 rollers. And the rollers basically are the way we read from it. We just roll and we kind of, we'll look at things. Actually, you can see, I actually dedicated this cover in memory of my father. The rollers on this Torah are dedicated in memory of children of congregants who died. This is in memory of a congregant's son who died. So it's just a nice way. It's something that costs a lot of money. It's a great way for someone to honor their loved one, and also for the congregation not to have to pay for it out of pocket, because these things are expensive.
Yeah.
Those scrolls are handwritten by a scribe. They're written on parchment, which is animal hide, primarily from cows or any kosher animal. It has to be kosher. It means that it has to be fit for reading publicly. And what that means is if there's even one letter of this text that is like broken enough that it doesn't actually, like you can see that it's broken, this is no longer fit for reading from publicly. So we keep them up. There's a scribe that comes once or twice a year, and he just checks over our text. He just fixed this. So if you look at the ink down here, it's a little bit like, I don't know if you can see it from there, but it's a little bit darker, like on the bottom right there. And so you can see where he's worked on it, because he's fixed it so it doesn't crack. And that makes it fit for use or kosher to read from publicly. They're written with an ink that is made from some kind of a plant. I don't know exactly what, but it's all natural, sewn together with sinew. And these are the scrolls that we read from each week when we read in public from the Torah. We also have books. Basically, this is just prayer books. Like, this is our prayer books and our Torah books. And it's not atypical at all. In fact, we give them as gifts when kids become bar or bat mitzvah, which is our coming of age ceremony. Books are very much a part of our culture. It's very typical that people in their homes would have more than one prayer book. We have special prayer books for our high holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which are our New Year and Day of Atonement. So there's a very special liturgy that goes with that. There's a book that we would use every week on the Sabbath, and that's pretty much, most people keep that at home. And then we also, as I say, people will often have copies of the Torah with the commentaries. Other than that, we certainly have other things. So we also have what I would call Judaica. Judaica is essentially ritual objects that we would use. So for example, we light candles to signify the beginning of the Sabbath. So it's not atypical for someone to have a set of candlesticks, 2 candles, one signifying remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, and the other one is observe the Sabbath day. Is just like, I guess, as we said, it's like a symbol of hope. It's a symbol of, of all these different things that we do. So they symbolize those 2 ideas. And then there are also sets for the end of the Sabbath. We mark with a service, which is literally the translation of the Hebrew word Havdalah means distinction. So we make a distinction between the sacred time and the more regular time.
What are some values that are like very prominent in Judaism?
So I told you about one, which is tzedakah, which is that the best way I've heard it explained, this isn't like a formal explanation of it, it's just we are obligated, it says in the Torah, that we take care of those in need. So tzedakah, again, that idea of giving, it literally translates as, it comes from the same root as the Hebrew word for justice. So it's doing what's right or doing what's just. And my favorite explanation says, if something good happens to you, you give to tzedakah, you give a little bit of money so that something good can happen to someone else. If something bad happens to you, you give a little bit of money so that something bad doesn't happen to someone else. And it's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
So that's one value. Another really important value for us is community. Everything happens in community. So when something bad happens, you're not supposed to be alone. You're supposed to be supported by the community. When something good happens, you're supposed to be together with community, so you celebrate. And then one of the most important values of our tradition is that if you save a life, it's as if you've saved a world in its entirety. And if you take a life, it's considered as if you've taken a world in its entirety. So every human being is created in the image of God and is deserving of respect and is deserving of honor, and we do everything. So like saving a life is the most important thing. Not only are you allowed to break Jewish law to do it, you are obligated to break Jewish law if you have the opportunity to save a life. Study is really important for us, worship, and but also doing acts of loving kindness, doing good for the world.
Yeah.
Repairing the world is how we like to think of it.
We hope you enjoyed our documentary on Judaism.
Thanks for watching!